You're listening to the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters Podcast, the place where faith, music, and life intersect. We exist to help Christian indie artists and songwriters just like you get songs heard. Hey, I'm here with my friend Jonathan Jackson, coming to us live from Nashville, Tennessee. How's it going this morning, man?
It's going well, dude. What are you up to?
Awesome. You know, today is actually a surprise no school day. So my kids are home, so it's possible that there could be sounds emerging from my left. So who knows?
All right. Well, there are going to be some sounds emerging from my right because my kids are also home today. I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So it's crazy.
So we're 7 years old and almost 5 in July. So we're basically playing in the same schoolyard, and so we get it. It's a wild party, right?
It is a wild party, absolutely, 100%.
That's the nicest way we could possibly say it, right?
Right.
Awesome, man. Well, you know, we've been buds for a while now, and I've been privileged to write songs with you and just call you friend. You know, but I'm excited for you to get to share your story and all God's been doing in your path along the way. And kind of with that in mind, like, where did music kind of all start? Where did it all begin for you?
Oh man, dude. Well, so it was, I was actually talking with a songwriter about this on Saturday. And one of the first songs that I remember playing, I started on piano, as a lot of us probably did. You know, a parent or somebody in our life got us music lessons. And so my mom got me piano lessons. There was a piano in our living room, and I just started playing. And I remember this song. It's called, do you know the old song, Knowing You? I think it's by this guy named Graham Kendrick, maybe?
I think I do. I think I know the melody.
It's like old school 90s / late 80s worship, which, I mean, I wasn't even born, I don't think, when it came out. But but anyway, like, it was, I just resonated with that song. I was like, man, I want to play music, and I love the piano. And so, you know, I kept going with lessons, and my dad was a pastor at a church. And so I would practice and just get it as good as possible. And then they kind of throw me to the wolves, AKA, you know, the church congregation, which they were all really pretty nice. I was more just nervous because I was.
So it was more, they threw you to the sheep, not the wolves, I guess.
They threw me to the sheep. They absolutely did. And some of those sheep had teeth.
Let's be honest, it happens.
As it goes with churches. So, but anyway, it was a good experience. And I was like, man, I really love worship music. I really love connecting with God through music. That was really important to me. And obviously just, I've always had a tendency like for chords and melody. And so I basically learned, kind of more in the like traditional classical style growing up all the way through high school and college. So when I was in high school, I went to a Christian school, and so got to play in chapel worship team. And then my senior year, I got to actually lead that chapel.
Wow.
And it was just, it was great. I mean, it was something I don't think I was prepared for. You know, maybe we never are when we jump into worship leader stuff, but you know, it was a learning experience, and I got to hear my voice through, you know, and do a microphone through a PA, you know, for the first time. And I was like, wait, do I sound like that? It's like, yeah, you do sound like that. I don't know if you've ever had that experience when you like hear your voice, you know, Brian, through a microphone for the first time. You're like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I like that, but it is what it is. So that was me.
It's a weird, I totally relate to that. And it's a weird thing, because I'm like, I don't like that at all. It's like my thought first, I was like, everyone hears that sound, because that's not what I hear. It's so weird, right?
It's so strange, man. And you know, and then you get people, you know, usually it's like unsolicited feedback, like, oh man, that's an interesting voice. You're going to keep working on that? And it's like, I think I need to, apparently, from what you're saying. So, but so that was high school, and I got to play in a worship band in high school, and our Christian worship band, we actually got to open for Sanctus Real, like, back in the day, man.
The Hammett era?
This is the Hammett era. This is their first. It was the album that, like, he got nominated for like male vocalist of the year. So like,
wow.
I think it was Fight the Tide. Do you remember Fight the Tide?
I think I do. Yeah.
It was like when they were like all over the radio, and Man, I love those songs. And so anyway, so I got to meet Matt back in the day, and then like kind of had a full circle moment, like
Yeah.
later down the road when I get to actually meet Matt. We ended up doing like a mentor uh, thing together. We just got to hang out for like 6 months and do songwriting and talk life. So that was kind of funny to share that with. I was like, I actually opened for you back in the day. I was the weird little keyboard player. But anyway, it's just kind of
And
funny
he
how that
politely
stuff works.
said that he remembered, right?
Yeah, of course he remembered, because the other there are 1,000 bands that have opened for them that nobody knows,
He's like,
So
"Oh yeah, you were the kid with the shirt with the collar and the yeah, that was you, right? Yeah, of
yeah,
course."
you guys sounded like kind of like a mediocre version of U2, right? That all that stuff, yeah.
It was like you won.
You won, right? Exactly. That's exactly what we are.
Yeah,
Probably
sorry,
more
that
like
was
U.5, but
yeah. Well,
oh
I'd say
man, but
you
yeah.
three, but
So
hey,
did that for a while, and actually studied, went to college and at Indiana University and studied classical piano performance. So my degree is in music, and I studied classical, just like Chopin, Beethoven. I love all of that stuff. But one of the things that I
mm,
found I was doing when I was supposed to be practicing, I would go into one of the practice buildings that we have, go into my assigned room, and it's like you're supposed to do like 3-4 hours, and warm up for like 45 minutes or an hour, and I found myself like kind of not even jumping into my regular scales and exercises, progressions, like the routine you're supposed to go through. I would just start playing like Coldplay, or like I think Gavin DeGraw was big at the time, so I was playing like, and then I was playing some of the Beatles stuff too. So it's like, all right, Yellow Submarine, or like Imagine, John Lennon, or like my really boring exercises. Like, of course, why would you not play the Beatles? I had to do it.
yeah. Come on, everybody should. I mean, honestly,
Everybody should. So it was just kind of like I just loved improvisation too. I love popular music. Whether it was something that was happening right then and there, with Coldplay, or it was some of these classics with whether it was like Paul McCartney, John Lennon, just the Beatles, all of that stuff was just so, the way melody and chords are working together was just so interesting to me, and so I was really drawn to that. And so yeah, it was like I had that classical education, but was always doing worship stuff at church that I went to in Bloomington, Indiana, where IU is. I got to lead worship there, and so it was kind of always just a part of what I was doing,
mm,
kind of alongside the classical stuff. And I always remember myself thinking, man, I really would love to get to the point where I get to play music, like whether it's like worship music or something within the Christian space, just because my faith is really important to me, and that combination of faith and music was really huge. So I had a friend of mine that actually was playing for Christian Stanfield at the time, like when Passion was kind of like rocking and rolling, and I was
mm.
like, man, someday like that'd be so cool to do something like that, if God opens the door, and just be involved in some way, within Christian music.
Man, that's really cool. I remember down here we had this band come and play like a youth event called Bella Reeve, and I don't know if you're familiar with Bella Reeve or not.
Yes.
But
So,
it was this band. They're really cool, and like they're from Orlando, and so they had gotten like a record deal or whatever. And then I remember the singer was Sean, this guy Sean who was in the band, and now obviously we know Sean Kern is like the Passion thing, and
yeah.
like, so saying that because like anything is possible through God, so like you never know how those can transpire. But I was going to ask you, learning the classical style, the like, most when I would consider the most complex, music of all. How did that, and then worship, sometimes known as like some of the simplest music of all. So how did you bridge that balance of, learning and digging into deep like chord and melodic structures and time changes and all these dynamics and things, and then kind of going and playing How He Loves, it's the same four chords over and over again. Like, how did you bridge that to keep it exciting for yourself, and just in general, like what was that transition like playing the Bach on Tuesday and then playing, Crowder Band on or Passion on Sunday?
Man, that's a great question. I think I've always been pretty good at compartmentalizing, and so I don't think with most people in life with regards to music or movies, they're really not. It's like, you know, you're always comparing apples to oranges. Well, this apple is awful and this orange is amazing. It's like, well, no, they're two very different, very distinct, genres, styles of film, style of filmmaking, or music, right? Style of
Mm.
production, a genre. I mean, you talk about, comparing some type of heavy metal band, whether it's like, I don't know, this isn't even, all the metal nerds will probably like get on me for this, but like Under Oath, right? Which is a totally different type of metal, if you want to even call it that, as
Yeah.
and then compare to some type of worship music. It's like, or a popular, pop song of the day from maybe one of the pop stars in the mid 2000s when, both of them were kind of running, like Katy Perry or whatever. It's like, it's totally two totally different styles of music. And so I feel like been pretty good at compartmentalizing. So I could appreciate, a great, Beethoven symphony, or a Chopin nocturne for like what it actually was,
Mm.
and be affected by that emotion, letting the music just like hit me emotionally. There's nothing like going to hear an orchestra and really see it to a certain degree, less
Mm.
theatrical, but going to hear an orchestra, a Beethoven symphony or a Mahler symphony, and just be blown away by the sound. And that was the thing too. I was like, I loved getting blown away by this full surrounding like presence of the violins, the cello, the bass, like the timpani, everything, right? That the conductor and the orchestra was making happen. And so it was the same thing when I would go. David Crowder Band was my thing. Like, I don't know how many Crowder Band shows I've been, like, not Crowder shows, and he's great, by the way, for what he's doing. It's
For
amazing.
sure. The
But
Crowder
DCB,
Band, though,
man, was my
OG.
jam.
Man, yes. I mean, church songs, like
Oh,
what? It's still a bit ahead of its time, and it's like getting old.
it's right. Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, and I remember like Our Love, what is that? Our Love is Loud. That was his first like commercial release or whatever. And then my
Mm.
buddy and I would we went and bought his like the CD before that with like the flower on it. I can't even remember the
Yeah.
name of it, but it was, it's like a
Yeah.
fan
What is
thing.
that? Was before they started getting like more like big mainstream. Because once Howie Loves, that's what brought him to like the radio mainstream, I'd say. But like,
Well, he was actually he was on radio in 2003 with pretty big, I think Oh Praise Him. That was the record after that, but it was like Our Love is Loud. It's this picture of like some dude with the headphones on.
yeah, the
Um,
bluish back. Yeah. Yeah.
but he
Okay.
went really big though with How He Loves. I mean, that's how a song like that typically goes, right?
Yeah.
And he just started crushing. But so I love Crowder, man. It was like, it was like music, classical music, and then like Crowder or whatever, worship, Hillsong or whatever, like that would hit me,
Mm.
and it would create the same type of emotion. It was different. It was more simple in a lot of ways, but I was like, I can't. I tried to write a Crowder song or write a worship. I was like, I can't do that. Like, that's this is tricky. It's so simple, with at least what I'm hearing on the radio, but I can't do it. And I didn't
Mm.
know anyone who could, really. And I'm like, there's got to be something more to this than what like my random like church lady criticizer person was saying about, Christian music on the radio. I'm like, it's got to be more than that. I don't think it's that
Yeah. It can't just
simplistic.
be. It's not just. It's more than just the four chords because there's power.
There's
You
power.
know.
Yeah.
So with that, like you said, you started leading in college and stuff. Now, are you writing songs at this point already and leading those songs, or are you doing like popular worship songs of the day?
Man, I was just doing whatever was going on today. Let's see. There was, I'm trying to think. Um, Gosh, what songs were we playing? We were doing Crowder, like "Oh Praise Him." I think we did that. "No One Like You," if you remember, that was that kind of that punk rock worship jam,
Oh yeah,
for
it
the
was awesome.
time. And then we
Like
were,
Steve Fee stuff.
yes, oh dude, Steve Fee, man, I jammed that.
Yes, or
The
old Jesus culture, right? So
Oh,
good.
dude, those are all that stuff, man. All of
Yeah,
that stuff. I think we even did. This is a little more old school, but we all loved it, so we did it anyway. It was, remember the Days of Elijah song
yeah,
by Mark Robbins or whatever. That's like old school, like from like the
man.
'80s, but it was my jam, man. And we did it one day for worship, and it was like, man, it's going great. People are singing, engaging. Though there's this massive key change at the end. I don't know if you remember that. It goes up like a step or a step and a half. Well,
It's
the
big.
band went up a step. I went up a half step. and it was the most like horrific clash you've ever heard, where everybody turns and looks at me because I'm leading, and I clearly messed it up, and it just went up. It just took it all down. But I think God was glorified in some way, because He is somehow through our praise, even when we mess up massively.
You were just playing jazz. It's like Victor Wooten says, you're only a half step away from the right note, you know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, you're close as you could. You're just doing your own thing, man. You're just free in the spirit, singing there. It's fine,
I need you around every time I mess up, which is, I feel like, a lot, to just make me feel better. Oh, it's okay. It's just jazz. It's just the spirit's moving. So,
Yeah. See, like, do you remember that joke, the SNL joke? Like, they're like, "Hey, my friend's cat started walking across the piano, and we couldn't tell if it was good or not. We just figured it played jazz."
yep.
So yeah, I love that, man. And so yeah, we all have those hilarious moments. That it's funny too, like because there are far more like massively great moments, but those almost blend together. But we remember the specifics of those more like crazy train wreck times, like, hey, my guitar isn't working and the countdown just ended at the clock on Sunday morning, and all those things. Or my string broke 5 Sundays in a row. Like, why did that happen? I don't know. But so, but like you said, God gets the glory through it all. So I know that you write a ton of songs and you release a ton of music, and we're going to get to all of that for sure as we go. But like, how did you start getting to a place where you're like, hey, like maybe my songs don't feel maybe as epic as that one of my heart songs or whatever, but like I feel like some of this stuff needs to be shared. Like, how did you get to that place where you did start taking some of those writing sessions and songs and sharing those with people?
Well, I don't. I felt like I kind of got started a little later with writing music. At least it felt like it at the time to me.
Hmm.
So I hadn't really written music until I was about 23. That was the first time I sat down and actually wrote a song. And my brother, who we've done a lot of music over the years. Been in some bands. He does mostly video production, though he's still involved in music right now, but mostly video. So he was always in bands, like when he was in like middle school and high school. He played guitar, just a great player, and was always writing stuff more in the metal scene. Back in like the 2000 early 2000s type
Hmm.
of a deal, with kind of that Under Oath era, Tooth and Nail era.
Yes.
And so he was always doing that, and I was like, oh man, this is so cool. Like he's can write music, he can like shred, and like he's writing like lyrics, writing melody. I'm like, this is so I've always wanted to do this. I've just never had the guts to actually sit down and do it.
Hmm.
And write. And I've always had this stuff in my heart. I've had melodies in my head. I've always like, I would have we'd have those flip phones, and like some of them had like a little notepad thing in there. And so
Yeah.
I would write scale degrees, right, for down for the melody, because I couldn't like record in this phone, but I could write down scale degrees. So I would type in like 2 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 7, to 6, all the way back down to 1, and
Hmm.
kind of just start writing, capturing these melodies so I could save it for later if I was out and about or something and I didn't have access to, whatever I had at home.
Yeah.
So that was like that was when I was 23. And so about 11 years ago was when I wrote my first song. Um, and I was like, man, I want to do a project. So my first project was actually for a church that I was leading worship at the time, though it didn't end up getting put out under the church. I actually just ended up releasing it myself. But I mean, I was so proud of it. It was like 7 or 8 songs, and it was a Christmas record. This was the first thing I ever did. I wrote a couple of originals, did my own arrangements, played all the parts except for the drums, and I was just really proud of it. And I got to put it out through CD Baby. That was before DistroKid was a thing. I still love CD
Yeah.
Baby, by the way. I think they're great
For sure.
for what they do. But it was like, man, my music's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music, and well, I guess it wasn't Apple Music at the time. It was iTunes. Um,
iTunes.
it was iTunes when like people would bank what they made on the year off of iTunes downloads.
I remember the magic of that, though. You're talking about Under Oath. I literally think the first album I bought on iTunes was Define the Great Line on
Yes. Oh my
iTunes.
gosh.
and it was like, wait a minute, I didn't have to go to Best Buy and now I can listen to this. What happened? Like, this is
What
amazing. So
what is the
I
world,
love that.
man?
I love, and I was afraid of it because I didn't know what iPods. I was like, why don't I just listen to all my CDs? Like, that's easier, you know? But then, like, obviously that was the beginning of a massive change for music.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you started getting your songs out there. So then where did you take it from there?
Well, I just kept, I was doing worship, so I had led worship up in Muncie, Indiana for a while, for a year, and then came back down to southern Indiana. So college, right, was Bloomington, Indiana, which is kind of like South Central ish Indiana.
Okay.
Got married when I was 23 to my wife, who I met at IU, and then we moved up, led worship in Muncie for a year, came back down to southern Indiana, and was just doing worship. Um, I got hired to be like a youth worship guy. And I'd always loved doing that. So that was a lot of fun. At the same time, I started a band, and we were kind of like it was like worship rock, but like when people looked at us, they're like, "Are you guys like metal or something?" I'm like, "No, I can't scream. So we're not really metal. We're just like super heavy power chords, distortion. Like I had a guitar player who
Yeah.
could shred."
Mm.
And we did like youth camps, but we had this like really kind of rock looking vibe. Like definitely, I had my hair was like down to here, like
Yes.
it was so shaggy. I had this like kind of goatee thing, which was just not looking. It wasn't good. A good look. It was
It's okay.
not a
I
good
mean,
look.
of the times, I'm thinking like Deftones vibes or something is what I'm
Yes.
imagining.
Yep. Yep. So we did that and got to play some youth camps with Lifeway. They're called
Cool.
Fuge camps.
Yeah.
And so they have some like mission, like basically students would come and they, there'd be worship and teaching. And then for the mission Infuge, they would go out into the community and just serve people. There were a number of like site directors. And so they would connect with local organizations who would need help, whether it was like a homeless shelter, a local just community organization, like all this really cool stuff. And so I got to be I got to kind of participate in some of those things. But my main job was leading worship, and so we did something like that out in California. And so we're out in California for like 2.5 months, and this it literally didn't rain a single day, but for the day that we left, it rained. It was the only day, and it was beautiful sunshine in Southern
Wow.
California. I was blown away, man. So
Yeah.
I love you, SoCal. It's the best.
I've never been. I've always wanted to go to Cali.
Oh
Haven't
my
been
goodness,
yet.
it is beautiful out there. But I love Nashville, and so we're here, and this is where we're going to stay. So, but that was a
So
cool time in life.
yeah.
It was just like we got to play some of our original songs at the same, like when I formed that band. That was a couple years after I released that Christmas album, year and a half ish, and so released an EP of original music and then an EP of worship stuff because we wanted to be able to connect with what the students and the leaders would come for, and they were like they love worship music. So we did some like I think we did "Rise and Sing" by Steve Fee. That's on that EP.
Okay. There you go. That's
And
a rocker or a bop, as they'd say these days.
it was a bop. It still is a bop. And at
Yeah.
some point, if I ever do get to like play some of that stuff again, I'm probably going to do "Rise and Sing" by Steve Fee because it's a jam. But yeah, our band was The Beautiful Discord. It's a little metal sounding, a little dark, but we played a
There's
message of
so
hope. It's cool.
yeah, there's a lot of depth to that name, which I really like. I appreciate that. So
Yeah.
did the beautiful Discord, is that what brought you to Nashville? Like, how did that transition go? Because I mean, growing up and schooling and everything kind of Indiana based, what brought you to Music City?
Man, so there's about a 5-6 year gap between
Okay.
Beautiful Discord and Nashville, and
Oh wow.
I'll breeze through that real quick because
No, it's
I don't
good,
want to
man.
take
Good
everyone's
stuff.
time. Um, but yeah, the Beautiful Discord. So we got to play. And then we just after we did the youth, we did Fuge, Lifeway Fuge camps for two summers. And from there, we were able to like book a tour out to California just to play some retreats and concerts. Just self booked. I just kept everybody's like I got emails and phone numbers, and so I'd make calls and try to get bookings. And so I was able to book like a 2-week tour out to California. And man, we
Wow.
borrowed my in-laws' old Jeep from 1995 or something.
Yes.
Then we borrowed this trailer that was about to fall apart, did a little bit of work on it, and we somehow made it out to California and back we got pulled over like 5 times, zero speeding tickets, zero speeding tickets. I don't know how it
Awesome.
happened. Like 5 warnings. From like whether it was a tail light that from the the trailer that went out or
Disconnected.
whatever that we didn't know about. And so that was wild, man. That was just like, it was like rock and roll, basically. That's what it felt like
Yeah.
Taco Bell, like fast food and like really bad meals, and it smells and everybody's sweaty, but we were rocking, man. We were living
That's
the
the
life,
dream, man.
and made no money, but it didn't matter because it was cool. Like, cause we had fun, and super intense times as bands, kind of fight and argue and stuff. But it was also like a super sweet time with everybody. Like I am so grateful for that experience. But yeah, so we went out to California and back. Did some more, shows for another year and a half or two. The band kind of just dissolved, as bands do. My brother and I started up shortly after that. I'd still written music. I worked with my buddy Michael Sanders, who is kind of how you and I got connected through Full Circle Music through a party like 4 years ago at Seth Mosley's place, which was crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that. Like it was. And I'm not sure if you remember this, but like we left the party because we had to park, I think, in the Kroger parking lot because they weren't allowed to have the vehicles parked outside of the residential area. And so the car took us and we got in. I remember seeing you and your wife, and me and my wife got in. And I feel like it was like Jerry Fee was driving us.
Jerry Fee was the driver, man. And I didn't know it at first because we were behind him. And I was like, is that Jerry Fee? And sure enough, it was.
It was, man. It was wild. But anyway, so Michael Sanders was used to be Seth Mosley's audio production, Melodyne, vocal tuning guy. And he got connected just through a random connection in Nashville. I think maybe Dave Hagen. I think it was Dave, who's at Dark Horse, I think. But anyway, so Michael was my producer in Jeffersonville. So I was always working on music. That's where I did the Beautiful Discord EP with. And then I started writing stuff. I was getting ready to put out my own original music just under my name. And then my brother and I formed this band. We didn't know what to call ourselves. We spent 6 months trying to find a name. And then we pulled up, the Sound Toys was up and we were in the studio and it said, it's Echo Boy. Obviously a phenomenal delay plug in, but we were like, okay, Echo Boy. Okay, let's do that. We were Echo Boy.
There it is.
And we put out 2 EPs.
Yeah.
And then we
that makes sense because it's delayed. That's the slapback. EP1, EP2, Echo Boy. Echo Boy.
That was it, man. It was, and I'll tell you this, like we did get to play some pretty cool shows. We did a show, we opened for Danny Goki, I think at the Indiana State Fair, which was really cool. Got some other neat played for this guy who was on The Voice at Indiana University, I think Southeast at the time. So that was this beautiful auditorium. So we got to do some really cool stuff. Everyone was just kind of in different directions. The songwriting was getting better and better and better. At that time, it would have been like 2015-ish, maybe 16. We'd go down to Nashville a little bit, my brother and I, and started to write. We started working with Riley Friesen at that time. Riley was doing production work and writing with Seth Mosley for a while. Riley's just, he's produced Family Force 5, Matt Hammett, a number of Capitol CMG artists. You know about Riley.
Oh yeah, and I love this sync stuff. The Club Danger, man. I mean, that stuff is that's like my jam right there too. I mean, all of it, but I love the vibe that they've got going in that world. So yeah, I'm a fan.
It's so hard. It's so good. They've had NFL placements and just like a ton of other really great TV spots. It's Club Danger is Riley Friesen and Derek Mount, formerly of Family Force 5. So it's just this like power duo of amazing sync music.
Yeah, I can tell because it is definitely something special.
Unbelievable. I'm sorry if you hear a baby screaming and crying. So I think
it's okay. I don't think I hear it. Yeah,
you don't hear it. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we just edit this stuff anyways. It's fine.
Yeah,
So you met Friesen, and so did you do recording with Friesen with Echo Boy?
Yeah, so that was towards the end of Echo Boy. It was like another thing with the whole band. I think God was probably trying to tell me something that it's not really going to be a band thing, and that's okay.
Okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started recording, and I think we did 2 songs with Riley. Wait, 1 or 2 songs with Riley on the Echo Boy EP. And then like a couple months later, it just kind of fell apart. Everybody was just in different directions. And as you know, it's so hard to keep a band thing going. It's I don't know. I mean, so when you see guys like bands like Switchfoot, who they obviously have the talent, they have the work ethic, they have the songwriting, the musicianship, all of those, and more importantly, the friendship and the ability to just, they love being around each other like all the time. I'm sure they have their moments, right? But
Sure.
you
They've got
just
some
kind of
brothers
see
there
that and
too,
you're like,
right?
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That is a sort of a hidden piece of the puzzle, right? Is just the ability to keep going through the dynamic, and too, like, especially with like those guys, like, I mean, they've been going for a long time, so they've had a lot of season changes in the background, so to keep, I mean, it definitely helps that, they have massive success. Like that can kind of, I mean, I don't know if that's the glue that keeps things together, but they definitely have a big fan base that helps probably fuel that. They're not just like, yeah, maybe we won't go play down the road. Like we're going to go play an arena tour together probably. So
you can kind of justify, it's like, oh, this is a work trip. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's a work trip.
Let's go to Hawaii and surf and also play.
Yeah. Right. Oh my gosh, dude.
So you started taking trips to Nashville, but now you've lived there because you said you moved there pretty shortly after we met at that party.
Yeah. So we met, was it 4 years ago?
It was like like in December of 2017 was that party. I think.
So that would have been at this point 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we moved in August of 2018.
Okay.
I think that's right. Yeah. So shortly after, So anyway, so I've been going down this after Echo Boy stuff, and I just kept stuff going because I was like, man, I love writing songs. I love doing this music production thing. I was at the time I was leading worship in Southern Indiana on Sunday mornings, and then I had a Monday night worship gathering that I was a part of, just at Love, and teaching private lessons, but writing a ton. So I started just coming down to Nashville. I was working with Riley. Got to write with Ben Calhoun of Citizen Way. Started connecting with Ross King, a buddy that I wrote a couple songs on his record, Ryan Linton. Actually, Ross came in on like 2 of the songs, or 1 or 2 of the songs that I wrote with Ryan. And so I was like, I got to meet this dude, Ross King. Like, what's this guy all about? And he happened to write one of my favorite songs, probably a lot of people's favorite songs, Clear the Stage, which is just a phenomenal,
man. I remember the first time I heard of the Jimmy Needham version, I was like, whoa, like that's the first time I saw Ross's name was attached to that version of the song. And ever since then I've been a fan too. So yeah. And actually
it's convicting, just like gets at you like, my goodness, like, oh, it's beautiful. So I got to write with Ross, and we just like, we connected, and like, it was really, really cool to see that. And so anyway, just back and forth, it's a 3-hour drive basically from Louisville to Nashville. And so I'd go up and down, a couple times a month, and my wife, and I do it in a day. So you just leave at like 5, 6 a.m. on a Saturday, get in at 9 or 10 and work till 5, get back at, 8 or 9 at night and do the grind, man. And it's okay because it's music. And,
right.
I don't know. So sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, something that God laid on my heart is like you got to dig ditches. There's a day where you've got to dig the ditch to plant the seed, and like, you got to put the work in. And then one day the hope is you turn around and there's a forest, but like there is a day where you've got to put the shovel to the dirt and do that work. So it might take those 15-hour days, and you might have to do a bunch of those. I remember when I was at the church, we're full time at the church, I go to the church all day, and then I get home, and once Susie would go to bed with the baby or whatever, like whichever baby at the time it was, like I'd come in here or wherever the studio was at the time, and I worked till midnight. And I would do that. Like, I'm not saying this is what I recommend, because like it's not easy, but like there may be some 15, 17-hour days sometimes. And then you may not see anything from that. But the thing is, and I feel like you're the same way in this, is you didn't do it to see anything like materialize necessarily. You just did it because you felt you needed to, and you wanted to, and you loved it. And
Yeah.
whether something happened or not, of course we want something to happen for sure, but like you're going to do that anyway. So I love that. Like, you're doing the full time. I feel like we're parallel in that way. Like, you were
Yeah.
doing the full time thing. You were driving. You were making, 6 hours of driving in a day. Plus, we all know like writing songs is a very draining exercise in and of itself, because you're so focused and you're so in that zone. So like, so I remember you saying like, did you started doing like the 100 song year thing like at that point, or like when did that really start? Because I mean, obviously co-writing that many songs in a year, it like takes a lot of focus. So like, when did that kind of start? Was it in that season?
Yeah, it started in 2016.
Okay.
And I listened to a podcast. There was a group that I was a part of. I was writing music with, writing worship, and one of the administrators of this group messaged all of us writers, and just with encouragement, from people who've heard songs or whatever. And she said, "Hey, check out this article by this guy named Ross Golan."
Mm.
And it was 2016, and I click on it's like a Billboard article, and it's about, hit songwriter Ross talks about how he's been writing 100 songs a year for blah 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 blah, and he landed, gosh, what was the song that he did? He wrote "Dangerous Woman" for Ariana Grande, and then before that he'd written this global smash that everybody would know. I just can't remember the name. Gosh, look up Ross Golan.
And the writer is right.
And the writer is, yep. And so
That's the
I
podcast.
read this article, and it's like he's got a podcast called "And the Writer Is." It was like 2 episodes deep when like it had just launched, and I was like,
Mm.
okay, this is interesting, man. I've consumed every single one since I listened to that. If I ever see that dude someday, like I have him to thank for, along with a few other people, for like inspiring me and spurring me on to start writing.
Wow.
Because the reality is, if you want to be a commercial songwriter, meaning writing for major label artists and having just the chance, no guarantee, but just the chance of getting your songs cut, you have to write a massive amount of songs. There is no way around it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to do it. Now, if you're just an artist, that's a different story. You don't need, I was having a conversation with one of the artists that I'm working with right now about how they don't need, if they don't want to go and dive in that hard, they're not looking to write for other people necessarily, but mostly just for themselves. I'm like, oh my goodness, you don't need to jump in that crazy. So don't burden yourself with, with that
Yeah.
responsibility if you don't want to do
Yeah.
it. You don't need to do it, rather. But yeah, so Ross is amazing. It just inspired me to, all these amazing writers and producers. Ryan Tedder was on like in the first year, some other like
Yeah.
amazing, just brilliant people. And I was like, what is this, the common thread here? And it's the hours, man. It was the work ethic. These are all commercial songwriters, mostly, not really many artists, but oh my gosh. So that was the thing, dude, that kind of got me going in 2016. I was like, I want my songs to be better, because I'll tell you what, when I was in Beautiful Discord at the youth camp, I heard my song in an outdoor rec game. The rec director decided to play my song right
Mm.
after a Toby Mac song.
Oh man.
And I could hear the difference sonically. I could hear the mix difference, the master difference. I could hear my songwriting difference. That was the big
Ooh.
thing. And I
Yeah.
was like, man, I want to write something like that someday. Or you know what? Maybe God will let me get close
Mm.
to maybe it won't ever be a smash like that, but maybe I could write something that makes people feel something the way that Toby Mac song just hit me like to my core. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. What do I need
Mm.
to do that? And a little, 3 years later, I kind of found the thing to spur me on, which was that podcast. But yeah, so
Man, I love that. And I love that, like, there's no substitute for the hours, and I feel like that is the thing. It's like everybody wants to know the secret sauce, and gosh, I feel like we all, myself included, like we all want to avoid the idea that it just literally takes hours and hours and repetition. I think, I don't know, maybe you have thoughts on this too, but like, I feel like we want to avoid it because like there's no substitute, and two, it's like putting your passion to the fire to see if you really want to do it. Cause it's cool to say you want to have, hit records, and it's cool to say you want to be signed, and it's cool publishing deal. Like I understand that. Like
Mm.
it sounds good, but like the people who really, really want it, for one, it's not a cool thing. It's almost like it makes sense because this is the way the songs get the best push out there.
Yeah.
But it's like if you really want it, then you got to be putting in the hours, and then you'll still want it. In theory, you want it more as you go because you get better. It gets more exciting as you go,
Yeah.
but you can't substitute anything but just like writing. I mean, so if, doing my math, if you started in 16, it's 21 right now, you've written probably, well, at least 500 songs, and I'm sure probably closer to 1,000. So like, and that's brought you to a level to where like, obviously I would love it if you could remember what that Toby Mac song was, play it, but then play Seeds in the Weeds right after it,
Oh
and then
man,
see
yeah.
how it sounds, because those
I'm
songs,
getting there. We bridged the gap a little bit with Beautiful Discord to Seeds in the Weeds is a song I just put out. So
but it sounds, the sonically, the writing, the performance. I mean, I'm not trying to, to fanboy you too much, but I am at the same time. Like this, I'm picking on that song right now, but honestly, all the stuff I've heard from you is top notch, and it's getting better and better. So with
oh,
that,
that's
like
kind, man. Thank you.
getting to Nashville, you made the move. What brought you to actually be able to do it? Because so many people want to do it, think they want to do it, might want to do it. Like, what actually caused you guys to turn into the 615?
Yeah, dude. One of the big things was, um, I mean, the biggest thing was I was thinking about it, but I didn't want to pull my family from where we were. At that time, we were kind of feeling God was getting ready to transition us out. Some things were going, on in our family outside of my wife and I, but in our family that were just outside of our control. Some heartbreaks, some tough situations. As we all have heartbreak. And God was just kind of felt like He was getting ready to do something and move. And I was going down all the time, and my wife just said I got back like 9 o'clock one night, get exhausted, but I had to lead worship the next morning and then Monday night. So it was just kind of the
Yeah,
grind. And
the
she's like,
grind.
"Why don't we just move?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, you want to do this?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's do it, man." And it was just kind of like, well, God, thank you for bringing my spouse on board without me even prompting.
Mm,
And if I had prompted it, it would be fine. But it was like, man, that was amazing. It just felt like it was not influenced by, my desire to want to have some type of success in music or whatever it may be. It was just kind of like, I'm just doing the thing. I'm being faithful. I'm going down. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm probably never going to be a big deal. And that's okay because I just love doing this. And then out of nowhere, my wife, I mean, it wasn't totally out of nowhere because I was, gone all day on Saturday several
yeah,
times a
yeah.
month, but just kind of said like, hey, like, why don't we just move? And,
Mm,
and then at that same time, I had about 3 songs that were being considered by major label artists, some big names that I had co-written on, and I was getting relatively speaking, a ton of indie cuts from indie artists, and it was like every song we wrote was like one of their favorites and would end up
mm,
going on the record. And that was happening in Southern Indiana in Louisville, and I was just like, well, I guess I bring something to the table that is working. Because I'm getting a lot of cuts and just we're having a great time in the writing. We're just hanging out, we're making music, and it's just the vibe is there. It's fun. And so all that was just happening at the same time, and I was like, okay, God, like this is going to be scary because the jobs are here, the income is here, there's family, it's some tough stuff, but there's family, there's familiarity. And man, we made the move, and then it was basically, I kept doing stuff, but it was like I think a lot of people run into this when they get into Nashville. They have all these people who say, you need to do this, you need to go, you need to move. And then they get there and it's just like crickets. And that's not
Mm.
because you're being forgotten about. It's not because nobody's there. It's because you just entered a new like land where you thought you knew people, but you kind of did, but you didn't really have community yet. You didn't have
Mm.
roots. And until you
Yeah.
establish roots and community, no matter where you are, you're gonna feel that. So we spent about a year and a half establishing roots and community, man. And I'll just be honest. I had to drive Uber and Amazon. I have driven around some people that whose music sound samples, wink wink, we use, and I didn't realize it until I dropped them off, and I was like, oh, that's that person, and or
Yeah.
any number of other random like people in music land that live in Nashville and stuff. And God was just having me do this thing. It's like, you're going to drive around these like some famous people here. And all the while, Satan's going to be in your ear. What are you doing? You're driving Uber. You're doing Amazon to make ends meet. I
Mm.
had to drive in like this super nice neighborhood meeting and literally drove by this producer person who I've always wanted to work with. I literally see them walking their dog, and here's Jonathan in his car driving Amazon and delivering the packages. It was like so humbling, like, but I feel like that was so necessary for me because I was like, I had almost turned 30, just turned 30, and I'm like moving to Nashville, and I hear the people kind of, we have people and voices in our head, right? I hear the voices in my head saying, "What are you doing? Like, you're moving to Nashville. I mean, I even ran into some people kind of look at me like, "Hey, buddy, you okay? Are you doing okay down there?" And it was like, God's providing. So yeah, I mean, I didn't get some massive record deal or anything, but like the Lord is providing, and I feel like that season, man, was so necessary. I stopped doing that a little bit before the pandemic hit. Um,
Okay.
I just kind of was like, all right, I think I've set up because, man, you know, so many people are like, man, how do you make so much music? And I'm like, well, I take care of my family first. My wife and I, provide. We take care of those essentials, but then I feel called to do this, so I work the extra that I need to work to be able to make a record. And I don't complain about it.
Mm.
I don't complain about the cost of the producer. I don't complain about the mix engineer, the master's engineer's price. If this is what I'm called to do, like I'm called to be faithful and find a way to do it, not wreck my family. That's the most important thing.
Hmm.
And just do the thing, just
Yeah.
do the thing. And like, God's going to take care of it. And I feel like right now I'm kind of like experiencing some of the fruit of that, of just kind of staying faithful. And that doesn't mean that that's going to happen for everyone. It's going to be the same story for everybody. But I think when you stay faithful to what God has called you to do as a writer, as an artist, as a producer, um, as a worship leader, maybe you're just called
Mm.
to stay in your church and write songs that sure maybe aren't going to make the cut commercially, but who cares because they're ministering to the woman in your congregation who just got left by her husband, or the couple that just lost like a daughter or a son. It's like, man, honestly, screw the industry. No one cares about that. When you're ministering to people at that level of like hurting people, like, man, be stoked about that because that's kingdom work. That's stuff that impacts a lot of people in a huge way. So when you get to heaven, when you see God someday in heaven, and you see you're going to see your impact. And you may thought you were just a little worship leader in a church, but you were so much more than that. And it's just about being faithful, man, and being faithful whatever God is calling you to do. So there's my spiel.
Man, that yeah, that's the gold right there. I mean, it's all I just love that your heart in that and the truth in that, like I had a doctor one time that says attitude determines latitude,
Mm.
and like that quote sticks with me so much because that's what you're saying. Like, you got to see like some of your heroes, as some people be like, oh man, I'm like, the delivery guy and there's my hero. So it's like embarrassing, or it's like,
And
I'll
it did
never
go through
be
my head.
there. Yeah, that's what the enemy's whispering to you constantly. But the reality is, it's like, that's the producer guy. I'm not so far away. I might be in
Mm.
a different capacity right now, But I bet you one day when you're sitting in the room with that guy or girl, you're going to be like, yeah, it just wasn't my time yet, because
Mm.
your attitude is proving to you that that's what will keep you going. It's not about, because you could say like, oh man, they're walking their dog, I'm going to quit. Like, that's it. But really, it's like, no, dude, I'm in the same town. I'm in the
Mm.
same city. We're crossing paths, which we weren't before. You're not in the capacity you want to be. You might want to be crossing paths, tracking up some vocals in the song you wrote with the guy. But like, it just may not be the time yet because you're not ready for it. But God knows when you are. So he's just giving you a glimpse, of what can be and what could be if you just keep at it, because you're closer than you've ever been before, right? So I
Mm.
mean, like,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's so valuable for people to hear. It's like, you may find yourself like go for an opportunity and you don't get it or whatever. I don't know what failure is. I feel like failure is abstract, because really it's just a shift in path. If you don't get what you thought you wanted, because really if you didn't get it, that means it wasn't meant for you in the first place. Like,
Mm.
we don't like that, because like we feel like we've got a goal. If we don't get it when we want it, then we blew it. It was on us. But really, I don't know, maybe I'm just too whimsical in this way, but I feel like if you don't get the opportunity that you are after, it wasn't for you in the first place, or at least it wasn't
Yes.
for you now.
Yes.
So I mean, you've been making music because Riley Friesen, for people who know Riley Friesen, like, he's an incredible producer, but you've been working with the guy for years, so you've built a rapport and a relationship, a musical relationship, to now where the fruit of that relationship is evident in these songs that you're starting to
Mm.
drop that sound amazing. But it's not like you just hired some dude that you liked. Like, this guy, you've been
Yeah.
working with this guy for a while. So that shows up in the songs, right? So like, I kind of want to talk about that because, I was just creeping on your Spotify. I mean, you've got some great numbers on these songs that have just been out for a minute. Like, I know we're kind of skipping a little bit of the steps here, but like, to get to where these songs are now and you're working towards a project, like, I'd love for you to kind of talk about the process of, getting these high quality songs and just your overall like scope as you've been dropping out these singles.
Yeah. Yeah, so the songs that are up on Spotify right now, I guess I've dropped at this point. I think there are four that were dropped. Last one was Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this record has kind of been the culmination of I'd say about 3 to 4 years of worth of work of writing. That's the writing process and production too. I've just taken my time with it. I didn't release any music in 2020, released a song early 2019. So it was almost 2 years of not putting out music of my own. Now there's songs that I'd co-written and got the chance to produce that for other artists that are out there, but nothing of my own, because it's just in the process of like, man, I want this thing to be representative of, where I'm at and who I am. And I want to pick the right songs too. So I think over that period, I'd say there are about 400 to 500 songs that were written, not necessarily all from me, but, there was woodshedding of 400 to 500 songs that happened in order to get out those. I guess when the record drops, it'll be 13 tracks total.
Wow.
Just to get to that point. And that's not to say that everyone needs to do that. I feel like it's taken me time to get to do that. One of my mentors, Bob Coughlin, at the beginning of my journey when I was doing Beautiful Discord, Bob wrote a book called Worship Matters. And Worship Matters is kind of a standard if you go to Christian college or in any type of worship music ministry. Or a pastor gave me Worship Matters before I even, knew Bob.
Yeah.
But he was, and I remember him telling me, he's like, man, you need to write a lot of songs. You need to write a lot of songs. And I just was just didn't think about it so much. And he was right on. I needed to write a lot. But for me, I feel like I needed to go through that journey of I need to get going and do it. So for me, it was like, okay, I don't write but 5 songs a year. I need to write 10 now. Or I don't write but 15. Maybe I need to write 20. So whatever your standard was, for me, it was like, I just needed to up it, to that next level. So now I'm at the point where, I'm writing a lot all the time. And so, the choices that I'm making melodically and lyrically, and what the choices I'm making with my co-writers and my mix engineer, my mastering engineer, my producer, like there's a level of collaboration that's happening. People have that misconception about collaboration, and a lot of artists, it's like it's John Mayer syndrome. By the way, John Mayer is one of my favorite guys,
Same.
I spend so much money on concert tickets. Uh, my wife and I going to Mayer concerts. I love everything he does. I like literally everything. But it's this John Mayer where I have to do everything. I know. I've talked with multiple artists about this, and they think they have to do everything, and it's kind of like a pride thing. And the reality is, if you can learn to be a great collaborator, your art is going to be better, and you're going to infuse more of who you are into that art when you learn how to collaborate well with your producer, with your mix engineer, with your master engineer. And really, reality is, if you know as much as you can about those things, it's going to make your song better. Even though you may not be tweaking the knobs, setting up the delays, you're still communicating to the person that you're working with. And that has massive influence over the track and over the song. And so it was just, honestly, it's a culmination of years being in a van, going to California, doing some just tour, playing for 10 people or 15 or 20. All of that experience that you're doing, leading worship at your church, it all is leading up to what God has in store for you and what he's going to do. It's not just like, it doesn't just all happen. If someone's so amazingly talented, there's a measure of talent. We have to have a measure of talent, but so much of it is the woodshedding that you didn't know why you were doing it, but you felt like you had to do it, and playing the shows and writing the crappy songs and putting out the music that just doesn't sound like it was recorded well because it wasn't, and it's like, it's doing it again and again. And so now at this point, I've dropped 4 singles that I'm really proud of, going to be dropping at least 2 more, probably. I don't know. I might just drop 8 singles and drop, or 10 and drop the whole EP, because I love every single one of these songs. The reality, they're some of the collaborators are people I love. They're my friends. They're also amazing songwriters, and it's unbelievable. Like, I just feel so blessed to have had the opportunity to write with guys like Ross King, write with guys like Daniel Doss, and all my other collaborators, like some who've been on your podcast that have just infused life into these songs and helped me to tell my story, And so I would just encourage, if you're an artist out there, don't be afraid to collaborate. Don't be afraid that your random indie hipster friend is going to think of you not very highly if you start collaborating. I'll tell you this, they don't think very highly of you already. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about your art. Your art is your art. Let you do you, make your music, collaborate, because you want it to be great. You want it to impact people. And that's a great thing, especially in Christian music. I mean, we have the ability to influence people from all over the world. I've had, I think I'm closing in on about 1 million streams on my Spotify, and over 3/4 of that has come in the past year and a half, just being intentional with putting out great, the best songs that I can. I'll say this too. My last single, Valley, I didn't write Valley. That song was written by Chris McClarney, Christian Stanfill, and another amazing writer. I got to actually sing on the Chris McClarney version, a gang vocal. I remember I got the demo of it just to practice vocals, and I was like, what is this song? This is my story.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I have to put this thing out. I resonated with it. And so, if you're an artist too, you hear guys like Seth Mosley talk about this too. Don't be afraid to record a song that you did not write, if it is your story and is going to connect. And I just felt strongly that I had to record a version of that and put it out. And so, it's out there, and I'm okay with that. And if there are a couple people say, "Oh, well, it's Chris McClarney's song," okay, great. I am honored to have been able to put a song out that has his name as a writer on, even if I didn't write it, because it's going to impact people and it's going to connect. So yeah, man, I think if we can all just get humble and be like, man, I don't have to do everything. God's ultimately got this whole thing. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord and he'll lift you up. Humble the Lord when you think you should be the mix guy and the master guy or the full 100% songwriting girl. You don't have to. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord. Maybe you are going to do that song. Maybe you're going to write 100%er, and maybe you're going to 100% produce it. That's fine. But when we get into that mindset of I'm this kind of John Mayer mentality, right? I have to do everything. It's like, I don't know if God's always going to bless that. And let's make the best art we can. So let's collaborate.
Wow, man, that is like another just treasure full of gold there. I mean, I'm thinking about the math here. Say, just average 500 songs woodshedded, not necessarily all for your projects, but could be, they could have been, even if majority, whatever. And then to come down to 13 of those, like, you're not even giving yourself cuts on all of your own songs. You know what I mean? So like,
Mm.
because you're only concerned with what is the best, most aligning thing for you right now. And like you just said, Valley isn't even something you wrote because you believe in the song so much, it doesn't matter. You're not the pride of I have to be muscling it or else it's not me. It just fits right in because I would never have known that, honestly. And I'm a fan. I listen to your stuff and like, we've written together. Like to me, it sounds just the same as all of your stuff. Like it sounds like it's Jonathan Jackson written song because you have the restraint and the self control to say like, hey, like this needs to be said through my voice for whoever is listening to me. It's important to be a part of my catalog. Doesn't matter where it came from. So that, I mean, that's incredible. And that's honestly, I feel like that's pretty rare that you can have that kind of restraint, especially as being such a prolific writer as you are already. You know what I mean? Like 500 songs is a lifetime of albums, if you just put
Mm.
everything else you did, but you're concerned with only the best that represents you now. So man, that's commendable. And I hope anyone listening can take the advice that you're giving and saying like, it takes a village. It's not, it
Mm.
can be, like you said, I can only imagine like one dude wrote it, and obviously that's one of the biggest songs in Christian, music of all time,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
and he said he wrote in like 20 minutes. I remember in the movie, I love that quote in the movie where, I wrote in 20 minutes, like, no, it took your whole life to write that song,
Mm.
So
Yes.
like, that goes into exactly what you're saying. And although you've given a flurry of glorious nuggets here, what would you say? Is there any piece of advice beyond what you've already kind of said that you tell your younger self to encourage, anyone listening and also your younger self?
Man, gosh, I've always felt like I've tried to, just improve year after year, whether it was, you know, spiritually or with my relationships, friendships or relationship with my wife. Um, I look back on there's a period of time when I think it was around 2013 when I had the band, The Beautiful Discord. And I just was like, I did it because I loved it so much, but I just didn't, none of us really know what we're doing when we're first starting out. And I just didn't know what to do. And I wish I had just chilled out a little bit more, or maybe a lot more,
Hmm.
and trusted God with the process and the journey that he's taking me on, that he was taking me on at that time. And he's still taking me on. Um, I just didn't know if I was good enough. I didn't know if I was chasing some dream. I didn't want to be that person who was chasing a dream their whole life and, just had a bunch of gear, logged up in their house because, they chased a dream. Now they got $40,000 of music gear, and they just kind of didn't do great managing their, the family stuff. They poured more stuff into basically what was their hobby. And I was like, I don't want to be that. I want to do that, but I feel
Hmm.
called to do this. I just wish I'd chilled out more, man. I just remember some relationships like that. I think one of the things that I've done so well now is like, I'm just making friendships with people. Like I love messaging people that I know who happen to have had success in music, a significant success. And we're just friends. And there's not, I'm trying to get something out of you. That's just I think this thing I wish I had known more back then, that
Hmm.
I just need to chill out and trust God and get to know people for people. And if God wants that relationship to flourish, it's going to flourish. I can't control it. There's there's a mindset out here right now that the people who've made it in music, they made it because they're connected and because they had this mix guy or this producer and this person. And it is so a load of crap. It just
Hmm.
is. It is all about what obviously the hard work is there, but like God has a hand in this, and it's like if we
Hmm.
can trust him with the process, he's going to get us where we need to go. We need to be faithful with the work. We need to do the time, but he's going to make it happen. So I wish I knew that back then. Like I wish I hadn't pushed too hard in a few relationships, harder than I probably should have. Um, and I might still have some of those relationships. Not that they were just awful and like they're never going to happen again, but I just wish I'd been like, okay, I can chill out. Like God's going to do it. This may be a dry season right now. This may be the woodshedding season, but he's going to be faithful to accomplish it. And so I just have that mindset now, man. If I don't get an opportunity, it's because it wasn't meant to be, man. It's not because I'm not going to force my way into that. I can tell you the things that I've tried to force my way into have worked out poorly 90 something percent of the time, if not 100% of the time, if I'm really thinking about it. Like the show or the gig that I'm trying to get, man, I got to open for King Country, and I just got randomly hit up about that, like from this person who I didn't ruin the relationship with, was a promoter. And they said, hey, we'd love for you to be an opener. And they didn't tell me who. I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then they sent the list like a month later, and it was for King Country, and it was like, and Sarah Reeves. And it was like, God, like, that's awesome. That doesn't mean that we don't book and work hard and put spreadsheets of emails together. I absolutely have files like that, but it's like, we need to evaluate, what are we trying to push forward out of our own strength, our own will, our own desire, and what's the stuff that God really has set aside for us that he wants us to work, but we're working this thing that doesn't really want for us, when it's really this stuff that we're supposed to be pushing. And so I would say, man, just like spend time in prayer, like get to know yourself, get to know, like see what people around you, closely around you, not random Facebook people or Instagram people, but those who love you and care about you. Like find out what do they say that you're good at? What do they say that God's doing in your life? Listen to that. Listen to that, because that's going to, help you to not mess up those relationships that God, might use down the road. Like, man, keep it going, because we just got to be faithful. Like that's all we have to do. And it's so hard though. It's so hard. But I think if we do that, man, we're going to have a lot more success in music, whatever success looks like, right, for us, than we would otherwise.
Man, it keeps reminding me of fruits of the spirit. And it's that last one that we all like the least, self-control,
Yeah.
like just let God do what he's going to do. We can't. I remember I was going to, they have a conference down here called Experience Conference. It's for worship leaders, and it's in Orlando. And I remember hearing that Jason Ingram was going to be at this. This is back in 2015. And I had a friend, and I was like, hey, like I might have a chance to meet Jason Ingram, who's, probably someone all of us really look up to. And I was like, what should I say? And I had no idea. I had no experience with, music industry, just like, a fan. And he's like, I know what to say. I was like, this is great. He's like, don't try to say anything. Just say thank you, And that always stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, like if I try to like force some sort of like interaction, for one, I'll look like an idiot because I have nothing of value to say because there's no relationship.
I've done that a few times.
So have I. I wish that I listened to my friend in every situation I've been in, but it's like, if I could just get 1 second with that person, then like all of my dreams would come true, because we'd hit it off. We'd be best friends. We'd be, having coffee in 5 minutes. It's like, that's for one, that's like a stalker mentality. That's not really how it goes. That's a fantasy, And so I love that you brought that up, because it's not something we've actually touched on the podcast so far. It's like, just come and be yourself, and not try to force some sort of relationship, because it won't work. You'll probably feel it. I can think of a couple instances, like we said, like I tried to like bring some like glorious like mind nugget to someone that I met, and like they were like probably confused by this, interaction that we had, because I tried to make more of it than what it needed to be. It's just trust God, honor his plan. And if he puts you in the same room, like that doesn't mean you should like hide, but let's not try to put like so much emphasis on this one interaction. Cause like you said, you literally got to open for a couple of the biggest artists. And I know there's more than just this one story in your case, but like a lot of like amazing artists, because of one dude or lady that you met at some point somewhere else, that like you didn't try to freak that relationship out and like make it more than it was, like there's such a, such an importance to the self-control aspect of the music
Oh, it's
industry, I
huge.
feel like, right?
Dude, I love that you mentioned self-control. That's just like, and I hadn't even thought about that, but it's exactly what that is. It's like what I tell to my kids, like we got to have self-control when they're maybe they're really excited. Maybe for that moment, it's a little too much excitement and it's not great for that context. And that's how to think about it. It's like, well, you can be very excited for meeting this person, but like, let's have self-control because that's going to benefit you in the long run. It always does. And I've burned a couple bridges in my life, and I've vowed to not burn any bridges again,
Mm,
because I don't think that's a godly way to carry ourselves as Christian artists. And I've
mm,
burned some bridges, and I regret those things, but I just don't want to do it anymore. So like, don't burn bridges. We don't need to do it. If you got a relationship with someone who is a jerk to you, man, we have plenty of those, whether it's anyone in the music industry, right? We all have had bad experiences with people, but like, man, like, let's not burn those bridges, because I think God blesses like peace and unity as much as you can. Live at peace and unity with one another, live at peace, live in harmony with one another. And we're going to get opportunities, man. Like if you can be you may be lacking in talent in the room, but if you can be the person who is a great hang and just like a light and joy and presence, man, people are going to want to be around that. You're going to get opportunities with writers that you never thought you'd be able to write with artists that you never thought you'd be able to play with,
mhm,
simply because, you didn't freak out, because you didn't ruin a relationship, or like, man, I don't know. I've had some stuff like I wanted to be connected with certain people. I'm thinking several in my mind, and I just, it wasn't meant to be. And I have had to tell myself, okay, don't freak out. Don't make this weird. Don't randomly message them and say, hey man, why was that weird? When it was never weird, I just made it weird. Now
mm.
it's weird. It's really weird now. And that's going to take 6 months to undo, if I even get the chance to do that. So it's just like, man, trust the Lord, be faithful. We're quirky, we're weird, we're artists.
Mm.
If something happens, just let it be, but don't follow up with a Facebook, Instagram DM where you make it super, super weird, because that's not going to serve you well, man. I've done that a couple times. I do not do that anymore. So
And I think something that brought to mind here is like, we're we're not meant to collaborate with every person just
yes,
because because we build up this thing, like, this person, this artist, like, oh man, they're going to love me, or they're going to really, my songs are going to fit perfect. I can imagine, like, that could very well be true, but like, we are not meant to, obviously it's impossible, so just because we feel like maybe we should doesn't mean that's like the way that it's laid out before us. So that's what I feel like, using, like, leaning into that self-control to just like,
mm,
man, it's hard, but just like let it be. Like,
let it be.
if you meet somebody, you may hit it off, you may not, but either way, just be cool and like appreciate that person or whatever they do, and like let it be. And then like maybe they'll hit you up, maybe they won't, but like we can't control it. So like just bringing what we have to the table. And because, we've all been in a room where there's like, that person is like, man, I was hanging out with this, trying to do that. And like, I understand that. I feel like a lot of that comes from insecurity, because we're like,
The posturing, yeah.
right, we're trying to like put ourselves at the level of the person that we want to communicate with. But like, and I'm not saying that's always like, it doesn't work for people. I mean, it may, I don't
It
know. Like,
doesn't work. Man, it's
yeah,
a Nashville thing too. And I'm just more and more, I'm like, you know what? They're not impressed by it. I've been like, I mean, honestly, man, it's like I wrote with Ross, and man, he's just a dude. And it's like, he
yeah,
doesn't care who I was writing with. I mean, you may need to do a little bit to a certain degree. You have to be tasteful about it, like to set up the right, just so that they know that you're not a total joker, like
right,
I've actually written songs. I'm not going to waste your time,
right.
but like the hole in the room posturing. Oh yeah, I did open up for this artist. Oh, I wrote with this artist. Yeah, it was cool. I went on a tour, big tour. It's like, we're trying to be it's to impress somebody at a certain level when they're not even looking for that. They just want to be with us. If they literally agreed to give us their time, we don't need to do any of that, man. I mean, it's not like they're all like Jesus, but it's kind of like sometimes I know some of them are like Jesus. Like, hey, man, just come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden. Like, come here. You don't have to bring your
Mm,
accomplishments because they don't really matter here. Like, we're just
yeah.
trying to write a song. We're just trying to collaborate. Like, I don't really care. Like,
Mm.
it's just like let it be, and like, man, thank them for their time, and that's it. Write a great song.
Yeah, and I too like a lot of that you have to like work through all that junk to get to the real deal, which is what those people are interested in anyways. They're not interested in like the stats. They're interested in like what do you have to say to add to a song that's going to impact people, which
Mm,
people don't care about what you've done. I mean, there's a level of people like, but in reality what matters is your heart and yourself, and that's what you can bring. And it's not about like, I love the word posturing. It's not
yeah.
about that does not, it doesn't help you, you know
Mm-mm. It
and,
doesn't.
and it actually, the thing that's beautiful about it is it really makes it easier to not have to worry about all that junk, because then you don't have to like figure out what you should say. You just say what you feel. And again, you don't click with every person in the world. That's just natural. But like,
Yeah.
just be yourself. And like, then you'll find your tribe. And then that's where stuff can actually happen, instead of like trying to present yourself in a certain way, because that's just like wasting time, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But I love that you talked about like we're not meant to write to be with everyone all the time. There's the person that I was connected with. There's several big producers and writers in the industry. I was connected with them for a period of 3 to 6 months for a number of things, and then we haven't really talked for a couple years. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess that would be cool to like, if that was those relationships kept on going, like, and we were all best buds, and like it was all great, but like it's also okay if not. I mean, how many
Right.
people do we have in our lives like that we don't keep in contact with on Facebook that we had a period of 3 to 6 months where we were involved with heavily, and now we don't talk with them? It's like,
Mm.
we don't give some of these people the same graces that we accept from ourselves every single day.
Wow.
And we do a lot of the same thing, man. We do a lot of the same stuff to like normal folks just like us, and then we won't give those same graces because, well, they've made it or whatever, they're this or they're that. And it's like, nah, I think we're all equal here so
No, man, that's so good. Like, yeah, we do the same thing but we don't want people to do to us, for sure. Like
exactly.
the golden
And we
rule. Like,
justify it because, oh, they're kind of famous. And
right.
here, let's be real about this.
Yep.
Most people don't know any big Christian artists. If you ask a mainstream pop person like a star, they have literally no clue who anyone in Christian music is. And that's okay. Like, that's nothing wrong with that. But it just gives us a perspective. Like,
Hmm.
it's like, stop freaking out about, we're all like, man, human beings. We're like, if we're believers, it's like, man, this person may have had some more success, but like, they're believers. Like,
Mm.
let's treat us all well. Let's give each other the same grace that we would expect to receive, when we screw up. But like, we're all equal here, man. Like, let's do that. Keep that going. So I'm not bashing Christian music. It's just more of a perspective thing, you know?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you've impacted my life, and I feel like I know you, so you owe this to me,
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's like, I know that's a little harsh, but I feel like
It's
and I
very
feel
true
like I
though.
can say that because I felt that,
I
like,
have too.
it's like, oh, you are in the public eye, this whatever, and like that's the price you pay to be in the public eye, is that you have to give me whatever I think you owe me, which is like ridiculous and it's not fair.
No, it's not fair. It's not. Because like it's like at every level too. Like, here's the thing, man. Like, some of these big writers and artists, like, I know it's like they would love to get into a room with Max Martin, but
Yeah.
but they can't, because it's like they are who we are when we're trying to get connected with the big Christian artists.
Yeah.
It's like it's all these tiers, and it's like, and so if we just have this mindset of like, I'm just going to come in and not try to impress anyone, not be weird. I'm going to give grace when I don't get treated how I think I should to
Hmm.
that person. Maybe they had a bad day. And it is going to, that perspective change makes all the difference in the world. You're going to get more opportunities. I don't know why it works this way, but I've seen it work in my life, that when you give that grace to people, when you become someone that people want to be around, even though you're weird and quirky and you may not be the most talented, man, I feel that in so many ways. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in the room, I feel like, man, I'm kind of like, I'm at the very best. I'm at the middle tier, or I'm like the least talented person in the room and stuff. But like, I'm okay with that, because that's who God is, made me to be in that moment, and I can be okay with that. And when they say something dumb and like offensive to me, I can be okay and give them grace. And I'm not going to be like, oh, let me tell you what this signed Christian artist writer said to me. This person's a jerk, putting down their whole ministry type of deal. It's like, we don't
Yeah.
need to do that, man.
Yeah.
We can give grace.
Mm.
My goodness.
Grace
I
and
don't know.
truth,
I'm going
right?
off on tangents, so I don't know. Should
No,
probably
man.
wrap this up, man. I'm sorry.
No, this is great. And I love, we're going longer than I normally do, but like I feel like we're digging into something that was both in our hearts that maybe we've never really got to communicate. So we get to share this with people who obviously have probably thought about this before. So I think it's important. And honestly, a lot of times, if not every time, well, let's be honest, every time the Holy Spirit lights up these type of moments to where like we get to capture and share this conversation, which like, who has this conversation,
Yeah.
So like, it's important because at the end of the day, it's all pointing to us being Christ-like,
Yeah.
because Jesus didn't put anyone on a pedestal.
Nope.
Jesus didn't put himself on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that if we are trying to follow after him and what he's doing, and in our context, do that through music and the music industry, then we have to model that and not let the, fanfare of the world guide our decisions and our opinions, whatever. Like Jesus just said, come on, come all, like love first. It's the most important thing. And then we go from there. So like we're doing that through music. So man, this is important. I'm glad that we got here, and I'm glad that we get to share this with people, because I know it's going to encourage and set people free, because like you don't have to posture. You don't have to be something that you think you should be. You just be yourself. You will find the people that you're meant to collaborate with, and then you will get to make impact for Jesus in a real way. So man, thank you for going down this rabbit hole. I feel it's important.
Oh man, I appreciate that, Brian. Thanks for doing this too, because I feel like some of these are conversations that we'll have in writers' rooms, or just DMs with people, and I feel like it's something that we all we're wrestling with. We wrestle with being secure about what we're doing, especially when we're some really talented people.
Yeah.
But like think about, we're all equal here. Like it's going to be okay. We're all equal. The song is going to get written. Let's not freak out. You're going to put out an awesome record, whatever you're at. You're going to get to play a cool show. Like, but just stay faithful, and trust in the Lord, because He made you who you are. Even with the quirks and the weirdness, right? We just have to practice some self-control, and He's going to take us farther than we ever could have imagined and dreamed. It's just the reality of the situation. We can trust Him.
Yeah, we can trust him because he's faithful. And that's a mic drop moment. And
Boom, done.
I want people to connect with you, and so let people know, where do you hang out social media wise? I know you said you've got some more music coming soon, so they need to follow your Spotify. I'll link it all below, but let them know like where to connect with you.
Yeah, dude. So the social media handles are JG Jackson Music. On Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can connect with me just on Facebook. Just type in Jonathan Jackson. If you're friends with Brian on Facebook, you'll be able to find me on his list. So yeah, just add me. Cool. Add me as a friend. I love connecting with people, and just get to hear stories, and who knows, maybe we'll write too. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah,
I do. Like I said, tons of writing and stuff, and I always try to write with everyone, because people were so generous with me and kind to allow me into rooms. Not that I've made it in some massive way, but I like to feel like I can share, what I've been given, with people right now. So.
Yeah. Well, you're a great writer, because songs we've written together, they're always fun. And like you said, great dude. Hang, and, I love the stuff we come up with. So yeah, anybody out there, reach out to Jonathan and
do it. Oh yeah. And Spotify too. Spotify is the big thing that I've been, kind of engaged with and pushing. I really probably more than I did a little bit on YouTube, but mostly Spotify, I'd say.
Well, it shows, man. Cause that You Can Have My Heart is over 6 figures in that streaming already. And it's only been out for a few months. So man,
I still don't, I feel like it's Monopoly numbers, man. Like Monopoly money, it's like, is this real? Like, I don't know.
It's the faithfulness though, man. It's like what we've been talking about. Like that is not your power. That is what God is, gifting you for, just your faithfulness to where He's called you. And not that is a given. You're not doing it for that, but it is awesome and exciting to see like the amount of impact, just one song, and the others are on their way to doing the same thing. So man, I'm excited to see and hear the new stuff. But before we go, man, I always like to pray over everybody before we go. So I'm going to pray for
Oh,
you, man.
thanks, dude. Let's do it.
God, thank you so much for Jonathan. Thank you so much for his faithfulness and for his openness and his display of self-control and his love and his peace and his joy and his all of the different fruits of the Spirit that you're working in and through him, God, through his music journey and through those days in college, feeling led to create, God, and then to getting a chance to be in a band and tour and impact people in California and across the country, God, and then working with his brother and then into Nashville with his wife, just leading her into making this decision, God, and then to see how all of that through all this music and all these songs have come together to impact people in a real way, God, and it is as cheesy as it is, God, the best is definitely still yet to come for Jonathan. All he's doing is he's getting more and more recognition and making impact through his songs, and his people industry or not recognize that or impacted, God. We just pray that your voice and your fingerprint is on everything that he does to ultimately point people back to you through the giftings you've given him, God. We're excited for this new season, this new record that he's working on so hard, God, and is planning for literally years. And we just pray that it exceeds and blows his mind with what it can do as these songs continue to go out and impact the world for you, God. We thank you for the time we spent together, God. We pray that anyone listening is impacted and encouraged through it too, as you are in control of everything that we've said and done today, God, that people can just be encouraged to know that they can just be themselves, God, and just trust you for everything that's before them, God. We're just excited to hear the testimonies that come out of that, God. In your name we pray, amen. We want to help reach as many Christian indie artists and songwriters as possible, and one way we can do that is with your help. So if you could take a minute and leave us a review on iTunes, that would be so appreciated. This is how the iTunes algorithm will push this content out to more and more Christian indie artists and songwriters. So like I said, if you could just take a couple seconds, leave us a review, that would be so awesome, means so much to us, and we would really appreciate it.